She took everything, my trust, my pride, even my son's respect. But she forgot one thing: I built my empire with blood and sweat, and I wasn't about to let a lying, cheating, gold-digging homewrecker walk away with it. So I played her game. And I played it better. The first time I suspected something was off was when she started coming home smelling like cheap cologne and grass stains. Not the kind you get from gardening, the kind left behind by some sweaty bastard rolling around on a football field. My wife, Lana, never gave a damn about sports before. Suddenly, she was volunteering for every team event, staying late for meetings, grinning at her phone like a teenager. Then came the texts. I wasn't even snooping. Her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter while she was in the shower, and there it was, a notification from Coach Mike: "Can't wait for tomorrow. Last time was fire. My stomach dropped like a brick. Last time what was fire? The team's losing streak? His halftime pep talk? Or the way he'd been eyeing her at the last game, leaning too close, laughing too loud? I should have confronted her right then. But rage doesn't win wars, strategy does. So I waited. Watched. And sure enough, 2 days later, she ran errands during practice. I followed. The motel was a dump off the highway, the kind of place you pay for by the hour. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white, watching through the windshield as my wife, the woman I'd given everything to, disappeared into a room with a man half my age. A man I'd trusted around my kid. I didn't storm in. I didn't scream. I just sat there, the engine idling, the AC blowing cold air I didn't feel. My hands were steady. My breathing was calm. But inside? Inside, I was a bomb with the timer ripped out. I took out my phone and snapped pictures. The motel sign. The room number. The license plate of Mike's jacked-up truck, real subtle, buddy, parked right next to her car. Then I drove home like nothing happened. That night, Lana walked in humming, her cheeks flushed, her hair slightly messy like she tried to fix it in a hurry. She kissed my cheek like it was any other day, her lips warm, her perfume too strong, like she was trying to cover something up. Had a good day? I asked, flipping a page of the newspaper I wasn't reading. Just shopping, she said, slipping off her shoes. You know how it is. Yeah. I knew exactly how it was. The next morning, I called my lawyer. Not some ambulance-chasing divorce hack, my guy. The one who'd handled my business contracts for years. The one who knew how to make problems disappear. Prenup's ironclad, he said, flipping through the file. But she might go after the house, joint accounts, alimony, especially if she spins it like you were the problem. I smirked. Oh, I've got a better spin. Because here's the thing about people like Lana, they think they're smart. They think they've got it all figured out. But they leave trails. They get sloppy. And Coach Mike? He was real sloppy. A little digging turned up some interesting facts. Like how he'd been fired from his last job for inappropriate conduct with a player's mom. How he had a gambling problem. How he'd been borrowing money from boosters under the table. And then there was the real gold mine, his social media. See, Mike loved posting. Gym selfies. Inspirational quotes. And, most importantly, receipts. Fancy dinners. Weekend getaways. All while tagging Lana in locations she'd never mentioned to me. I screenshot everything. Dated it. Backed it up in 3 different places. Then I waited. Because the best revenge isn't a scene. It isn't yelling or breaking things. It's letting them dig their own grave, then handing them the shovel. And Lana? She was about to learn that the hard way. The thing about liars is they always slip up. Always. Lana thought she was careful. She deleted texts, used cash for motel rooms, and made sure Mike never called the house. But she got comfortable. And comfort makes people stupid. One night, she left her laptop open. I wasn't even looking for anything. Just needed to print something for work. But there it was, her email, still logged in. And right at the top, a confirmation for a weekend getaway. 2 adults. 1 king bed. Wine tour package included. Under Mike's name. I felt my pulse in my temples. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. 1 click. That's all it would take to see everything. I clicked. Emails. Hotel confirmations. Even a receipt for lingerie, black lace, size small, bought the day before our anniversary. The irony was almost funny. Almost. I forwarded every last one to myself. Then I deleted the sent folder. The next morning, I made pancakes. Lana came downstairs in her robe, yawning, her hair tousled from sleep. She smiled when she saw the food. "Ah, you didn't have to do this." "I wanted to," I said, flipping a golden brown pancake onto her plate. "Enjoy it while it lasts." She kissed my cheek before sitting down. I watched her pour syrup, humming to herself, completely oblivious. That's when my phone buzzed. A text from my lawyer. "Got it. We're set." I smiled. 2 days later, Lana announced she was visiting her sister for the weekend. "Have fun," I said, handing her an overnight bag she hadn't packed herself. She blinked. "You're not mad?" "Why would I be?" I shrugged. "Family's important." The confusion on her face was priceless. As soon as her taillights disappeared, I got to work. I changed the locks. Emptied the joint accounts. Had her car towed from the hotel parking lot after she checked in. And then I sent her a single email. Subject, surprise. Attached was every photo. Every receipt. Every damning piece of proof, along with divorce papers and a copy of the prenup she'd signed but clearly forgotten about. The last line. "Hope the wine tour was worth it." Her response came an hour later. A phone call. Screaming. Crying. Threats. I hung up. Because revenge isn't about yelling. It's about silence. And hers was just beginning. The phone rang 27 times that night. I watched it light up the bedroom wall, her name flashing like a warning sign each time. By the 28th call, I turned it off completely. Let her scream into the void for once. The next morning, my lawyer called. She's lawyered up. They're threatening to contest the prenup, claim duress. I laughed. She signed it after buying a $90,000 Mercedes with my money. Tell them to try. But Lana didn't go down without a fight. She showed up at the house 2 days later with some slick-haired attorney and a sheriff's deputy. The doorbell camera caught her face when she realized her key didn't work anymore. "Mr. Dawson," the deputy began when I opened the door, "your wife claims she's being unlawfully locked out of her residence." I leaned against the doorframe. "Ex-wife. And it's not her residence. Check the deed." Lana's face went white when the deputy confirmed it. "See, here's something she never bothered to learn. I transferred the house into a trust years ago. Our marital home. Never actually hers." Her lawyer started spouting some bullshit about marital assets, but I just handed him a manila envelope. "Page 3, I said. "Security footage from the Hampton Inn. Time-stamped. High definition." The way his mouth snapped shut was almost as satisfying as watching Lana's perfect manicure dig into her palms. The real masterpiece came 3 weeks later. Mike lost his coaching job. Turns out sleeping with players' mothers violates about 6 different clauses in his contract. The school board was especially interested in the text messages I'd anonymously forwarded, particularly the ones where he discussed using team funds to cover their little getaways. I heard through the grapevine that Lana moved in with him. Into his 1-bedroom apartment above a tire shop. Real step down from our gated community. Last I heard, she's working at a department store perfume counter. Mike's delivering for DoorDash after his coaching license got revoked. And my son? He doesn't talk to her much these days. Turns out finding out your mom was banging your coach does that to a kid. Some people think revenge is about violence or screaming matches. They're wrong. The best revenge is watching someone's carefully constructed house of cards collapse, and knowing you held the fan. As for me, I kept the house. The cars. The business. Everything. And every now and then, when I drive past that tire shop, I roll down the windows just to hear the sound of my exhaust echoing off their crumbling walls. Music to my ears. The final move. I saw her one last time at the custody hearing. Lana looked different. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by discount store jeans and a shirt with the perfume counter's logo still pinned to the collar. Her hair had lost its salon shine, and those nails she used to get done every week. Chipped. Bare. She tried to play the victim, of course. Sobbed about how I'd cut her off completely, how she deserved half. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s with the tired eyes of someone who'd seen this song and danced too many times, barely glanced up from my evidence folder before ruling. Full custody for me. Supervised visits for her. And that prenup? Rock solid. Lana's lawyer actually had the nerve to ask for spousal support. The judge's laugh echoed through the courtroom. You're joking, right? I didn't smile. Didn't gloat. Just nodded politely and walked out, my son beside me. The real kicker. Mike left her. Turns out, a broke, unemployed football coach with no prospects doesn't stick around when the money dries up. Especially when his new girlfriend comes with baggage, like a court order limiting her time with her own kid. Lana tried calling me last month. Said she wanted to talk. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was pathetic. Rambling about mistakes and second chances, her voice thick with the kind of tears that used to work on me. I deleted it before she even finished. Now I wake up in my quiet house. Drink my coffee on the patio overlooking the pool I own free and clear. Watch my son thrive at a new school with a coach who actually knows the meaning of professional boundaries. Sometimes, when I'm feeling particularly petty, I drive past that tire shop. Roll down the window. Let the smell of burning rubber mix with the scent of my leather seats. And I smile. Because she wanted to play games. But I changed the rules. A year later, the notification popped up on my phone, a Facebook memory. 3 years ago today, with a photo of Lana and me at some beach resort, her tanned legs draped over mine, both of us grinning like idiots. I stared at it for a long moment before swiping left. Delete memory. The algorithm didn't know we were over. But everyone else did. My son, Jake, stopped asking about her around month 6. At first, he'd come back from supervised visits quiet, his shoulders tense. Then one day, he tossed his duffel bag on the couch after a visit and said, "She just complains the whole time. About money. About Mike. About you." He looked at me, 15 going on 40. I don't want to go anymore. I let him make that call. The court couldn't force a teenager to play happy family. Then came the email. Not from Lana, from Mike's new girlfriend. Some waitress from the diner near the tire shop. Turns out, he'd recycled his entire playbook, flattery, fake promises, the same damn motel. "He's doing the same shit to me that he did with your wife," she wrote. "Thought you'd want to know." Attached were screenshots. Texts. Receipts. Even a selfie of Mike shirtless in what looked like a basement apartment, a "world's best coach" mug from his old job still on the nightstand. I didn't respond. Just forwarded it to Lana's Gmail, the one she'd used to book their wine tour. Let her sit with that. Last week, Jake's new team won the championship. As the crowd cheered, I caught a glimpse of a familiar face in the stands, Lana, sitting alone near the back, her once vibrant hair now streaked with gray at the roots. She was clapping, but no one was clapping with her. Jake saw her too. His celebration didn't falter, but later, in the car, he said, "She looked sad." I kept my eyes on the road. Yeah. She did. We didn't talk about it again. Revenge isn't a moment. It's not a scene in a movie where you dramatically slam the door or deliver some killer one-liner. It's quieter than that. It's the sound of a life moving forward without them. It's your son choosing your house for the holidays. It's your ex showing up to games alone because the guy she blew up her life for couldn't even pretend to care. It's looking at your reflection in the window of your paid-off Mercedes and realizing, really realizing, you don't think about her anymore. And when you finally don't, that's when you've won. The unexpected letter. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday. Thick, cream-colored paper with her looping handwriting I'd recognize anywhere. No return address, just my name in that same fancy script she'd always used when she wanted something. I almost threw it out unopened. But curiosity is a bitch. Inside was a single sheet of paper and a photo, one I'd never seen before. Jake as a newborn, swaddled in blue, Lana exhausted but glowing in her hospital bed, my own younger self grinning like an idiot beside her, one finger carefully brushing our son's tiny fist. The note read, "I know you hate me. You have every right to. But for Jake's sake, can we at least pretend to be civil at graduation next month? He deserves that much. No apologies. No excuses. Just Lana, cutting straight to the one thing she knew I couldn't ignore, our son." I stared at that photo until my vision blurred. That was the hell of it, no matter how much she'd screwed me over, those early years had been real. The sleepless nights, the first steps, the way we'd tag-team parenting like a well-oiled machine before everything went to shit. Graduation day. The auditorium was packed, buzzing with excited families. I spotted Lana immediately. She dressed down, no flashy jewelry or designer labels, just a simple navy dress. She'd aged. Not unkindly, but life had clearly knocked the polish off. We sat on opposite sides of the aisle. When Jake's name was called, we both stood. Clapped. Cheered. For one brief moment, our eyes met over the crowd, and something unspoken passed between us, not forgiveness, not even friendship, but the quiet acknowledgement that we'd made something good together, even if we'd failed at everything else. After the ceremony, Jake pulled us into a three-way hug so tight it hurt. "Thanks," he mumbled into my shoulder. "For today." Lana's perfume smelled different. Cheaper. But her hands, when they briefly brushed mine as we separated, were still the same. The aftermath. She texted me a week later. Just once. "Thank you. For Jake." I didn't reply. But I didn't delete it either. Somewhere in my attic, in a box marked, "Jake, baby photos," that hospital picture sits now between his first ultrasound and his kindergarten diploma. A relic from a life that no longer exists, preserved but not displayed. That's the thing they never tell you about revenge, it doesn't fill the hole. It just reshapes the edges until you learn to live around it. And sometimes, if you're lucky, you find better things to fill the space. Like your son's laughter as he tosses his cap in the air. Like the weight of his arm around your shoulders as you take one last photo together. Like the quiet understanding that while some fires burn everything to the ground, others just reduce things to their most essential parts, and what remains is strong enough to build on. I locked the attic door behind me. The past can stay where it belongs. The phone call at 2 a.m. The ringing jerked me awake. Not my cell, the landline, the old house phone I kept only because it was tied to the security system. Nobody calls a landline at 2 a.m. unless the world is ending. I grabbed it halfway through the third ring. "Hello." Silence at first. Then a shaky inhale. "It's me." Lana's voice, but wrong, thin and frayed at the edges. I didn't know who else to call. I sat up straight, suddenly wide awake. In 15 years of marriage, I'd heard that tone exactly twice, when her father died, and when Jake spiked a 105-degree fever at age 3. What happened? A muffled sob. The clink of glass. Then words that turned my blood to ice. He's in the hospital. Mike. They think it was a stroke. I should have hung up. Should have said, not my problem, and gone back to sleep. But some reflexes never die. Where's Jake? Sleeping at your place, remember? His tournament weekend. The relief in her voice was palpable. At least she'd remembered that much. I was already pulling on jeans. Which hospital? The waiting room. The ICU smelled like antiseptic and bad coffee. Lana sat curled in a plastic chair, her makeup streaked, clutching a Starbucks cup that hadn't had coffee in it for hours. She looked up when I walked in. The hope in her eyes gutted me. They won't tell me anything, she whispered. I'm not family. I sat beside her, careful not to touch. What happened? The story tumbled out between sips of cold coffee, Mike's slurred speech at dinner, the way he'd collapsed in the parking lot, the panicked Uber ride to the ER. I called his brother, she said. He hung up on me. Of course he had. The Dawson family grapevine had kept me updated, Mike's gambling relapse, the DUI last winter, the restraining order from his ex before Lana. The man was a walking red flag. A doctor approached. Mrs. Dawson. Lana flinched at the name she'd abandoned. I stood. How bad? The doctor glanced between us. Massive hemorrhagic stroke. He's on a ventilator. Even if he wakes up. The unspoken words hung heavy. Lana made a small, broken noise. The choice. Sunrise found us in the hospital chapel, of all places. Lana stared at the stained glass like it might hold answers. He was all I had left, she said quietly. I thought of Jake asleep in his childhood bed, of the college acceptance letter on our fridge, of the way he'd started calling my girlfriend Aunt Sarah, without prompting. No, I said. He wasn't. The truth hit her like a physical blow. Her shoulders crumpled. For the first time in years, I reached for her. Not as my wife. Not even as my friend. But as the mother of my child, who was hurting in a way I understood too well. Her hand was cold in mine. The aftermath. Mike died 3 days later. No family came. Just Lana, sitting alone in that ICU until the end. I paid for the cremation. Not for him. For Jake, who shouldn't have to carry the weight of his mother's grief. At the memorial, if you could call 6 people in a funeral home's cheapest room a memorial, Lana handed me an envelope. Inside was a check, every penny of the child support I'd sent over the years, untouched. I didn't want your money, she said. I tore it up in front of her. Then stop acting like you're alone in this. Jake squeezed her shoulder. Sarah brought her tissues. And for the first time since the divorce, we stood together, not as what we were, but as what we'd become. The family Jake needed us to be. The lesson. Revenge is easy. Compassion. That's the hard part. But watching Jake beam at graduation, his arms around both his mothers, because yes, Sarah got promoted, I realized something. The best revenge isn't destruction. It's building something better from the ashes. The invitation. 6 months after Mike's funeral, a thick ivory envelope arrived in the mail. Sarah held it up with raised eyebrows, wedding invitation. Before flipping it over to reveal Lana's familiar handwriting. I almost didn't open it. But the embossed logo caught my eye, Hillside Recovery Center. Inside was a letter, not a card. I'm 90 days sober today. They make us write amends letters. I owe you about 1,000, but this one's for Jake. He should know his mom's finally getting her shit together. The paper trembled in my hands. Sarah squeezed my shoulder as I read aloud the part that undid me. Tell him I'm sorry I missed so many games. That I chose wrong. That I'm trying to be someone he can be proud of now. The visit. We met at a neutral location, a diner halfway between her sober living house and my neighborhood. Lana looked healthier than she had in years, her cheeks fuller, eyes clear. But it was her hands I noticed most, steady, no longer picking at chipped nail polish or spinning wedding rings that weren't there. Jake hugged her first, lingering longer than I expected. When she whispered something in his ear, his shoulders shook once before he pulled back, nodding. Over chocolate milkshakes, Jake's choice, she told us about rehab, about trauma therapy, about finally understanding why she chased men who treated her like an option. I thought I needed to be saved, she said, stirring her straw. Turns out saving yourself is harder. Jake slid his hand into hers. I'm glad you're here, Mom. The way her face lit up at that word, Mom, made something long buried ache in my chest. The unspoken truth. Driving home, Jake broke the silence from the back seat. Dad? You okay? I met his eyes in the rearview mirror, so like hers, but with my stubborn brow. Yeah, bud. Just thinking. Sarah reached across the console to thread her fingers through mine. She understood what I couldn't say. This wasn't the ending I'd imagined. Not the fiery crash of karma I'd fantasized about during those sleepless nights after the divorce. This was messier. More human. The new normal. Nowadays, Lana comes to Sunday dinners. She brings grocery store bouquets that Sarah secretly rearranges, tells terrible mom jokes that make Jake groan, and always does the dishes despite our protests. Some wounds don't fully heal. We don't talk about Mike. Don't revisit the past. But we've built something fragile and precious out of the rubble. A family, redefined. Sarah calls it radical forgiveness. Jake calls it not having to split holidays anymore. Me? I call it peace. Because the greatest revenge wasn't destroying her life. It was being happy enough to watch her rebuild hers.